Hi students, good afternoon. So I'm recording this NSS session for you today because we had problems with access to Blackboard yesterday when we were scheduled to have our NSS. So I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet, just making sure that you've got all the information that you need for support. And then as I mentioned yesterday as well, please guys, any questions at all that you're stuck with, let me know immediately. That's exactly why your tutors are here, to ask questions as soon as you come up against something that you're not sure about or you don't understand. That's our purpose. Okay, so you've seen this document that's on the screen before, which is the assignment brief, is what I call it. And by the way, just to remind you, I will be uploading the two documents that I'll be using now to your announcements, so you'll be able to access them there as well and download them for yourselves. Okay, so I'm not going to go over this one in detail because you've seen it before. I use the same information for your first assignment, and this is the technical information all collected in one place for you, so that if there's something you've forgotten about the upload process, you can come here to this document and find out exactly what to do. So just a reminder that your due date is the 3rd of May. I think that's Wednesday next week. Is it a Wednesday? Let's have a look here. Yeah, it's a Wednesday, so Wednesday next week. Before 9 p.m. And we are covering the first 4 learning units in this assignment, specifically learning units 3 and 4. And as always with accounting, everything that you've learned before comes into it. Specifically for this accounting 1B, everything in 1A, you have to know. And if you have forgotten or you're not sure, please go back, get your 1A textbook and work through it again, flip through it from the beginning all the way through to the end, because you cannot do accounting if you don't have that basic knowledge, that foundational knowledge of what's contained in the textbook. And you must use your textbook as your source. These EDGE textbooks are written specifically for this course, and they contain everything that you need to know. And your assessments are based on the information in these textbooks. So you don't need to go anywhere else. I know the textbooks look long and daunting, but honestly, if you work through them, you'll be saving time rather than going to all sorts of other sources to try and find your information, other than obviously what I upload for you as support information. So the most important thing from this this document is that you must upload a PDF file, please. Okay, and the rest of this you can read through yourselves. I'm not going to bore you with that. And then we'll go to the other document that I call the lesson plan. And this one takes us through the assignment question by question with information that I try and give you here in this lesson plan is to indicate to you in your textbooks exactly where you will go to find the information for this specific question, as well as clarifying anything that you need to know about the question that will help you to quickly complete the question and to make sure that you have done it correctly. Okay, so as you know as well, the first part of this assignment prep or lesson plan document, I've also given you some very important information that you must read. It's not here just for you to skim over. I've put it right at the top in a different color because it is important and because these are the common errors that students make the most often. So when you finished your assignment, come and read through this, check these points here and make sure, double check yourself, make sure that you have completed these. So again, just a reminder that you must upload a PDF document. That referencing is required for numeric modules, specifically if it's a paragraph or theory type questions, which in this particular assignment that you guys have got for assignment 2, there aren't any paragraph or theory type questions. So You don't need any referencing other than what I do want you to do is include a bibliography at the end, just basically using whatever source you use, which in your case will be your textbook. And it's just to get you in the habit of forcing you into the habit of including references with a reference list and a bibliography at the end. Okay, sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay, so the very important things that you must not forget, you must follow all the usual conventions for referencing and plagiarism. Okay, we've spoken about that. You must follow all instructions in the required very carefully. So that means if they tell you to round to the nearest whole number, you're required to do that. Part of accounting is that we test to see that you are paying attention and that as accounting students, we are training you in attention to detail, and that includes following instructions. Double check that you're answering exactly what was asked for, and don't leave anything out. Sometimes there's various parts to the question. Make sure you've answered all the parts in the question. Please, most importantly, show all of your workings. So show all of your workings means that your workings must be on the page on your answer sheet. So you can have your answer with the workings underneath, cross-reference to where you've used them, or if, depending on what the question looks like, you can include the workings within your question as you need them. Whatever looks the neatest and will be the easiest to mark and is the easiest presentation for you. Okay, so we're not doing any theory questions, so this next one isn't relevant for this particular assignment. And again, read the questions carefully, double check that you are answering what was asked for you. Okay, so then let's have a look at the questions. Question number 1 is made up of 2 parts, 1.1 and 1.2, similar to your first assignment. 10 marks in total and 5 marks for each of the parts. So 1.1 for 5 marks. They have given you 5 statements, and you need to just give one word or a short phrase that best describes that particular statement. Okay, so in order to do this, you will need to read through the text of Learning Unit 3, which is your depreciable assets, because this question 1 refers to Learning Unit 3. Very little out of Learning Unit 4 year-end adjustments, so but we'll come to that. So 1.1, Learning Unit 3. When I say read through the text, then I think guys give up and they think, oh, it's going to take me too long, and I'll just guess. It won't take you long to do the reading and to find the answers to these questions, I can assure you. If you start from the little introduction from Learning Unit 3, you will very quickly find the information for these 5 questions. I promise you, and it will be worth the 5 marks. Only question 1.1.3 comes from Learning Unit 4. And that you will find very quickly in Learning Unit 4, the source document used to record depreciation. It's mentioned in there. You won't have any trouble finding that answer. But again, you've got to go to the text and scan through the relevant section. Okay, so that question does not need to be referenced. Then for our question 1.2, this is a true or false question, which always seem to be super easy, but again, read carefully before you put your cross down so that you make sure that you're not getting this wrong. So for 1.2, most of these answers you will find in Learning Unit 4. So I've put here in the lesson plan that you should look for the appropriate subheading in the chapter to locate the relevant paragraph. So in the little statement, you will basically gather from the statement a little phrase or something that you will easily find if you go to your contents for Learning Unit 4, page 87, and you read those, that's what I'm talking about, the subheadings, you'll quickly have a look through those to see, okay, I'm most likely to find the answer in this particular section of the chapter. Again, it won't take you long to find them. They're not difficult. The answers are there, and don't throw away those 5 marks by being in a rush. And then question 1.2.1, that's something that you learned in Accounting 1A in Learning Unit 2. So if you go quickly there to Learning Unit 2 in your 1A textbook, you will find that answer. If you don't remember it, by now you guys should know that easily, but if you don't, then that's where you'll find it. And again, this question doesn't need to be referenced. Or you can just, I'll be happy with that one reference right at the end, bibliography or reference list, and you put your textbook there. Okay, so let's go on to question 2 for 45 marks. And this entire question comes out of Learning Unit 3, depreciable assets. So it's all about the depreciation process. Okay, so if we have a look at question 2, the information that's been given to you, you've been given some balances out of the books of a company as at the 30th of June 2021. So basically a small little trial balance is what they've given you. Just from the section relating to non-current assets, equipment, vehicles, furniture, the actual asset at cost account, and then the 3 accumulated depreciation accounts. Remember, those are called negative assets, and each one of those accumulated depreciation accounts is married to its asset account. So equipment and accumulated depreciation equipment are the asset account and the negative asset account. And when we add those two together, we will then get what we call the carrying value of the asset, which is the asset at cost, equipment, minus the accumulated depreciation to date. Okay, so that's all the information that they've given you. And then there's some additional information about when the various, what date the various equipment was purchased, and then what the depreciation policies are for the 3 different assets. So what they have asked you to do in question 2.1 is that you must prepare the asset disposal account in the general ledger of Concord to reflect the sale of the vehicle. Okay, so one of our assets, we disposed of it, we sold it, and so we want to know not the journal entry, but the general ledger account. So remember, that's what we call the T account, which is the account in the general ledger that is headed asset disposal, and we want to see what entries will go on the left-hand side of that T account and what entries will go on the right-hand side of that asset T account when we dispose of an asset. So you'll easily find this information in section 3.4 in the textbook under the section called the 4 steps of asset disposal. So I didn't put a page number, it's page 67. Read through those 4 steps on page 67 and make sure that you follow, okay, because this comes after we first learn how to do depreciation and why we do depreciation. Then we've got this section, what happens when we dispose of an asset sometime after we have owned it for a while. And then over the page on page 68, we've got the section called disposals at the beginning of the financial year. Because it's important that you look at what date the asset was disposed of, because there are certain entries that we've got to do if the asset was disposed of in the middle or at the end of a year as opposed to on the first day of the financial year. It's very important that you know this information also for exam. So in this particular assignment, they've given you an asset that was disposed of on the first day of the year. When it comes to the exams, you're very likely to get a disposal of an asset perhaps that took place at some point during the year. So read through this section first and then work through example 3.2 on page 68, because that's a simple disposal of an asset example. It explains what we've done, and it gives you the general ledger accounts, the T accounts, showing you exactly what entries go into each of those accounts when we dispose of an asset. Okay, I've told you that. Okay, I've told you that. So very importantly, have a look at how the general ledger accounts were presented in this example. So this is example 3.2. You must use the same method in this assignment where you've been asked to prepare the asset disposal account. So they've only asked for the one account, the asset disposal account. So that's the one right at the top of page 69. You see there at the top of page 69, T account. We call it a T because we draw an actual T, and on the left-hand side of the T are the debits and the right-hand side of the T are the credits. In this particular account, so unless they tell you otherwise, when they ask for a general ledger account, you must always fill in all of the columns, which means date, details, folio amount for the debit side, and date, details, folio amount on the credit side. Okay, so exactly as it's entered on page 69, that is the format that your answer must be presented in. So for you to get all of the marks allocated to this question, the date, details, folio, and amount must all be on the correct side of the ledger account for each amount recorded. So make sure that you remember your dead click and use the example to follow, and then you will get everything on the right side. And then this is just a reminder as well that in a general ledger account, a T account, the information that goes under the details column is the name of what we call the contra account. So in this instance, they've asked us to complete the T account asset disposal. So in the details column, if I am debiting asset disposal, then on the debit side of the asset disposal account, in the details column, I will write the name of the account that will get the credit. The amount goes on the debit side of the asset disposal account because I'm debiting asset disposal. And next to that amount, I write what we call the cross-reference or the contra account, which is what is the name of the account that got the credit. If I'm debiting asset disposal, which account did I credit? And vice versa. If I am crediting asset disposal, which means I wrote an amount down on the right-hand side of the asset disposal account in the amount column, then next to that amount in the details column, I will write down the name of the general ledger account that was debited. Because remember, we always use the double entry system. So if I am crediting asset disposal with 7,500 Rand, I must also be debiting some other account with 7,500 Rand. Okay. Then question 3.6, disposal of an asset and the general journal. You can use that example to follow for this question 2.1. It's very much in the same format as the question that they've asked you. So you've got the text to follow, the content, the description, the explanation. You've got example 3.2 and you've got question 3.6. All of that, if you follow that, you won't make any mistakes. Then question 2.2, they have asked to prepare the note to the financial statement that shows the movements for property, plant, and equipment. So this is what we call the property, plant, and equipment note. That they've now asked us to complete, and we are doing the note for Concord Limited. So in other words, all of the non-current assets that fall under property, plant and equipment must be included in the note. So this means we will have in our note, we will have a column for equipment, a column for vehicles, and a column for furniture. So there will be 3 columns making up your what we call the PPE note for this question. Again, in your textbooks, if you go to section 3.5, and that is on page 81, disclosure of depreciable assets. Disclosure means in our financial statements, what information must we disclose there? In other words, present in our financial statements that the users of our financial statements will then read. And this is what we call the property, plant and equipment note, which is for the users of your financial statements to read so that they can see a summary of exactly what PPE you started out the year with, new PPE that you purchased, any PPE that you sold, and what the amount of depreciation was for those assets during the year. So if you look on page 81, there is the format of the note appears on page 81, and that is the exact format that you must prepare for your question. It must look exactly like that, excepting you will have your 3 column headings will be equipment, vehicles, and furniture. And in the question, they say a total column is not required. So that just saves you some space on your page for presentation. If you want to do a total column to make sure that everything balances, you're welcome to do that, but it's not required from a marking point of view. Okay, so to reiterate, your answer for 2.2 must be in the format of the table on page 81. And then please, guys, go and have a look at question 3.11 in the textbook. It is the exact format of this question that you've been asked. And if you follow question 3.11, you will see exactly what you should do for your assignment. Okay. So again, for question 2.2, you're going to read 3.5, disclosure of depreciable assets. You're going to have a look at the format table on page 81, and you're going to go through example 3.5, and then do not neglect to look at question 3.11 and use that to base your answer on. Okay. Very important for both of these questions, and I can't overemphasize this, it's very important that you write down or type down all of your workings or calculations that you do for both of these questions. So for your T account asset disposal, you will have to do some calculations to get to the amount that you're going to debit or credit that account. Those calculations must be shown on your answer book. You can put the calculations underneath the T account and then number the calculations. So you'll have calculation number 1, and then wherever you've used that answer, you just put a little number 1 next to it in your T account where you've used it. So you cross-reference your working to your answer. And the same thing for your note. You'll have to do quite a fair amount of calculations, and they must be shown. And when we do work like this as well, we always head our workings, so you don't just write down a sea of numbers on your answer sheet, but you put a description with each working. You put a description as to what that calculation is for. Okay, because you remember you are doing workings for somebody else to read. So if somebody else picks that paper up and reads it, they must be able to work out exactly what you've done. And if you've done a calculation, it must be meaningful. Why did you do that calculation, and where did you use that answer? And then the last one, question 3 for 45 marks. This question is likely to take you quite a fair amount of time, so please make sure that you allowed enough time for you to complete this assignment without losing marks because you ran out of time. And again, just before we start with this question, writing down all of your workings for the amounts that you will fill in for your question 3 is also very important. You stand to lose a lot of marks if you don't write your workings down. So question 3 comes from Learning Unit 4. So we've got question 1, that's a little bit of Learning Unit 3 and a little bit of Learning Unit 4. We've got question 2, that's entirely out of Learning Unit 3, depreciation. And then we've got question 3, that's entirely out of Learning Unit 4, financial statements of the sole trader. Let me just quickly find my start there. Okay, so the required for this question says prepare the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income of Astro Traders for the year ended 31 December 2022. So they want to, this is basically what they want to see is the actual, what we call income statement. The proper name for it is statement of profit or loss, prepared exactly according to the rules given to you in Learning Unit 4. So just, okay, so what have they given you? There's a lot of information here. You've got a trial balance, which is a pre-adjustment trial balance. And again, you won't know what this is all about without having worked your way through Learning Unit 4 from the beginning, particularly Section 4.2 year-end adjustments. You need to read through that and understand it. And basically the whole of 4.2. So the 4.2.2 depreciation, 4.2.3 the accrual concept, that is NNNB 4.2.3 the accrual concept, because that's the section in the textbook where they teach you about the 4 adjustments that we make at the end of the year. So depreciation is one of our year-end adjustments. So in Learning Unit 3, they teach you about depreciation and how to work out what the Rand value of the depreciation is. And then in Learning Unit 4, financial statements, they then bring depreciation into the year-end adjustments section. So depreciation is one of our year-end adjustments. There are 4 different accrual entries that we might have to do. That's on page 89. And then there are also a couple of other adjustments that we need to make. Page 98, creating or adjusting an allowance for credit losses. And where is the last most important one? No, I'm probably not going to find it because I'm looking for it. The last one is making sure that your closing inventory is recorded correctly. I can't find the page number at the moment, but it's in this learning unit as well. So those are your basic adjustments that you do at the end of a financial year. Pre-adjustment trial balance, you then do the adjustments, and the adjustments will consist of depreciation, the 4 different accruals, and then adjusting any allowance for credit losses that you've got, and adjusting your carrying value of your trading inventory to equal whatever your actual physical stock count was, and not the theoretical value that you had. So you've got a pre-adjustment trial balance. Underneath that additional information, that is all of the information that you're going to use to do those year-end adjustments. And you will find them all in Learning Unit 4 in the various examples and questions, this additional information. And then required is then to prepare the final statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. So just a note, if you have a look at your trial balance, you'll see that in the nominal ledger section, which is a section that starts with sales, in other words, the income and expenses section of your trial balance, we've got an account under sales called cost of sales. So as soon as you see cost of sales, you know that this company is using the perpetual inventory system and not the periodic inventory system. If they were using the periodic inventory system, there would be no cost of sales account in the trial balance, but we would see an account called purchases. So hopefully you remember that from your inventory, the two inventory recording methods that you have learnt already. So in your textbook, if you have a look at your contents for Learning Unit 4 on page 87, you'll see right at the bottom, they have got comprehensive financial statements, perpetual inventory, page 118. And underneath that, they've got the same for periodic inventory. So you are going to go to page 118 and follow that example to see exactly what your final income statement should look like and how a question like that should be done. So example 4.5 on page 119 is a comprehensive example where they've given you a pre-adjustment trial balance. They've given you a list of adjustments on page 121. And then from page 122, they've then given you the general journal recording those adjustments, which you don't have to do. The year-end closing entries, post-closing trial balance, and then last of all on page 126, the statement of fund, sorry, we want the one on page 127, the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. So your answer to question 3 must be in the same format as the statement on page 127 in the textbook. Okay. So if you use this example, example 4.5, starting on page 119, then that will assist you in completing this question correctly. And all of this additional information you will be able to find in these examples in this chapter. So you will have to do workings for each of those adjustments. So that is what you will then write down on your answer book. It's a pity they didn't number these instead of making them bullet points, because then you could have just numbered each of your workings for each bullet point, showing how you arrived at the final value for each of these amounts that must be presented in your statement of profit or loss. So there's a lot of work to be done for this assignment. You've got all the help you need in the textbook. The textbook is excellent and your assignment is based on the textbook questions. So if you are following, if you follow through and you sit with your textbook and you work with the textbook and your assignment, you will definitely be able to trace exactly what you need to do. Okay, so that's what I've said. Example 4.5, and as I've said also, it is a big question. So make sure you give yourself time to sit and do that. Just another reminder to highlight and follow all instructions given in the required of each question very carefully. Read those additional information sections carefully as well to make sure you've understood what they're telling you both in question 2 and in question 3, so that you don't misread percentages or actions or anything like that. And again, no referencing required for question 2, but remember to do your bibliography or reference list right at the end as well. Okay, so now let's just take a quick look at the question paper itself. Here we go. Okay, assignment 2. Okay, so your question 1, question 1.1, 5 marks. For each of the following statements, indicate the word or words. So it might be 2 or 3 words, a short phrase, or it might just be one word that best describes the statement. You will find the statement with the matching word in your textbook. All you need to write down or type down on your answer book is the number of the question and then whatever this correct word is. You don't need to write out the statement itself. And then our question 1.2 is our true or false question. Again, you'll find all of these answers in your textbook. And again, you only need to write down the number of the question. So question 1.2.1, and next to it, true or false, or just a capital T or a capital F will be sufficient. Then for our question 2, this was our prepare the asset disposal account and prepare the note, the PPE note for the financial statements. So here they have given us just a snapshot out of the trial balance of Concord Limited as at the end of the year. And they've just given us the section of the trial balance that pertains to the non-current assets. So we've got equipment, vehicles, and furniture. So remember I told you equipment, at whatever goes into this account is always at cost. And then whenever we depreciate an amount, the accumulated depreciation goes into what I call the ACBP account. So when we take the cost minus the accumulated depreciation, the remaining balance is what we call the carrying value of the equipment. So additional information. Remember, just take a careful note of the date. The information that they gave you in the little trial balance was the 30th of June 2021. And they want you to prepare the asset disposal account for the vehicle that was sold on the 1st of July 2021. So the 30th of June 21 will then obviously be the end of the 2021 financial year. And we disposed of the vehicle during the following financial year. And it was the first month of the next financial year. In fact, we disposed of it on the first day, the 1st of July of the new financial year. And then also during the next financial year, on the 1st of October 2021, we bought a new computer. So the property, plant and equipment note that they want you to produce will be dated the 30th of June 2022. Okay, so just take note of the dates. The trial balance that you've been given is dated the 30th of June 21. So in other words, those are the opening balances for the financial year. Then under additional information, that is the movement in these assets that took place during the year. What did I buy? What did I sell? What was depreciated? And then on the 30th of June 2022, the end of the financial year, that's when we will produce our note. And the disposal of the vehicle took place on the first day of the new financial year. Okay. So again, in the lesson plan, I've given you all the places to go to find the information to complete this. Please take note of those question numbers that I've given you and go and refer to them in your textbooks, and you will not make a mistake. I'm just having a look over here if there's anything else. Office equipment, the vehicle. Just for the vehicle, just take note that it was sold on credit. So in other words, we did not receive cash when we sold the vehicle. We sold it on credit, which means that whoever we sold it to still owes us that money. And there is an example exactly like that in the textbook as well. If I find it for you quickly. Straight line asset register. Let me just have a look here. I think it's this one here. Sorry, guys. I know that dead air is not a good thing, but I'm just reading something quickly here. Where's the question where they sold it on credit? Oh, I'm not going to find it now because I'm looking quickly. But in your textbooks, one of the questions is where they sold the item on credit. So each of the assets is depreciated slightly differently. So equipment is depreciated 33.33% per annum on cost. So that is your straight line method. Vehicles is depreciated at 20% per annum according to the diminishing balance method, and furniture also according to the diminishing balance method, but at 15%. So these two depreciation methods, straight line method and diminishing balance method, you'll find those descriptions of them on page 60 and page 61 in your textbook as to how they work, how they, the description, and then on page 62 and page 63, you've got examples of the workings for both of those methods. So I've given you a question number to follow for question 2.1, and the same for your note, your example, etc. in the textbook for doing question 2.2 as well. And then question 3, your last question. This is your pre-adjustment trial balance. For Astro traders. So they have given you which amounts. Have a look over here. They've given us 2 columns. Get to the right page on the question paper here. This is what we call the prior year balances, which means as at the end of the 31st of December 2021, these were the balances. And now at the end of the following year, the 31st of December 2022, these are the balances now. Okay, so that basically just gives you the 2 different years. And in your required, we want the statement of profit or loss for the year ending December 2022. So this is the year that they want, December 2022. Okay. They don't say specifically if they want you to give them comparatives. Let me just have a look. Okay, no, you just have to give the balances as at the end of December 2022. No comparatives. Okay, so you'll see there are some question marks over here, which means that you will have to go, using the additional information that they've given you, you will have to go and do a calculation to work out what the closing balance as at the 31st of December 2022 was, so that you've got the correct values to then go and draw up your statement of profit or loss. Okay, so you can see these are the pre-adjustments. So vehicles, we will have to depreciate vehicles. Here's our opening balance for vehicles. We will have to depreciate them if there were any was anything that was purchased or sold, we have to make those adjustments to arrive at the final carrying value. So remember also that this amount here on the let me just double check, yeah. On the amount that appears on your statement of profit or loss is going to be just the income and expenses involved. Remember, statement of profit or loss is all of my incomes at the top minus all of my expenses underneath, and then that will my last line of that statement will be the profit or loss for that particular year. Here again, there's some calculations that we have to do using this additional information. So the best way to tackle a question like this is to work through the additional information bullet point by bullet point, so that you know you haven't left anything out, that you have taken into account all the information that they've given you. So with each of these items of additional information, it will be meaningful in some way or other. You will need to use that information in arriving at one or other of these missing amounts, or one or other of the incomes or expenses that you need to list. I would personally, if I was doing this, I would number these bullet points. It just makes it easier. And then if I was doing work-ins, I would then use this number that I've given the bullet point, list my work-ins using that number, and then it will be easy to trace exactly what you've done when you present your statement of profit or loss. Okay. All right, guys, it's a very nice assignment in terms of, by the time you finish this assignment, you will have learned a lot. You will really thoroughly know your learning unit 3 and 4. These are nice comprehensive questions. And hopefully, if you have kept up with your studying to date, you will manage these okay. Remember, you've got all the help in the world. The textbook is perfectly written and laid out so that you can follow it, follow these questions in your textbook, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. So I'll be looking out for any emails or messages from you guys if you need any help for the assignment. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop the recording there so it doesn't go on for too long, and I'll be posting this recording for you together with the 2 documents, and then I'm wishing you the very best of luck for the assignment, and remember, I'm here to help you if you need anything. All right, thanks, guys. See you next time.